Hey everybody, I'm Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. We are coming to you today on the World Wide Web and all the Facebooks and Twitters and whatever. If you want to find us, you just go metaspeak.com. And there will be. The entire website is there, including recommended reading lists, recommending TV shows. Dig is the new TV show. Of course, you've been watching Sleepy Hollow. When I was at the clinic the other day, Wayno said, "Oh my God, Sleepy Hollow is great. I thought you were crazy." I said, "Yeah, because I'm like always crazy." Dig on USA Networks, fabulous. Watch the whole thing. It's a limited, I think it's a 10-part show. But it talks about the apocalypse and what the Christian groups and the Jewish groups, the radicals, are doing to make it happen. I've been talking about this for years, and here it is on TV. It's in story form, but this is all accurate information. Gotta watch it. Different aspects of God are mentioned on there, interesting things for you, old shows, current shows, radio shows, anything you want. So also, if you want to contact us, make sure you do it at metaspeak.com. And if you want a private appointment, 727-736-4567 on the phone only. I do not have people come to my home office. And we're talking today about meditation, and then we're going to talk about reincarnation, rebirthings, regressions, getting it all straightened out so that everybody's on the same accurate page. And we have Gracie, Princess Gracious Gracie Bennett, and Krista suggested she gets her own segment, so she's getting a couple of minutes called Gracie's Kitty Corner, where I'll be giving you important information about your pussycats, and many of these things also relate to your dogs. Okay, meditation. Did I cover everything? All the business out of the way? I always forget, so sorry. Meditation and prayer. Prayer is when you talk to God and you say, "This is what I need, this is what I want, these are my problems, please help me out." And meditation is when you shut up and listen, and God talks to you. Sometimes you'll hear a voice. Sometimes you'll get images, just like you're watching a movie all of a sudden. Sometimes you'll hear a sound. Sometimes you'll smell a fragrance, which will remind you of something. Sometimes you don't get anything at all, but a couple of days later, there's your answer. Sometimes it goes right over your head till like 2 days later, and you think, "Oh, I know what that meant." You just weren't paying attention. The universe is talking to us all the time. Many of the ancients used to say that the veil between our physical world and the astral world is very thin. In fact, at Samhain or Halloween, that's what the Celts believed. And they were afraid that some of their nasty ancestors would come back and haunt them, which is why they wore their disguises, and that it was easier for them to do so. There are certain times of the year that is true, and that is one of them. But a spirit on the astral side who loves you and pokes in to see what you're doing every now and then, or who follows you in times of trouble, because they can see a few beats ahead of time as to what's going on. They will follow you and they'll whisper in your ear. Your guardian angel is also another one who whispers in your ear. I think I may have told you about going to the dentist, 6 months ago. It was in the late spring, early summer, and I heard stop, and I stopped. I immediately looked at the door. At the bottom of the door was a baby pygmy rattlesnake. Now you think, oh, it's just a little snake. Well, it has all the venom it's ever going to have. And its mouth wide open. And that's the thing I caught first, because it was next to a black mat, and they are dark gray, dark to medium gray with black ovals, markings. I want to tell you. And then I heard somebody coming towards the door. He said, "Wait, don't open the door, there's a snake." I hear on the other side, I'm thinking, thank God I'm not hysterical. I couldn't get the thing to move. Finally, I backed up. And by the way, they lunge. So even though that was about the size of a pencil, the poison is still very potent, and I'd wind up in the hospital. And so would anybody coming out the door, and it could have gotten inside. It could have gotten inside anyway without anybody realizing. You know, sometimes you stand there and hold the door open, and you're chatting, and you don't know what's crawling in. So anyway, I stomped my feet, and the vibration, I guess, upset it, and it went running around behind a planter. I opened the door. I said, "Get out and go," and I went. And they said, "Oh, we saw the mother dead in the road the other day. We wondered if it was a female or a male." I said, "Well, I'm telling you, it was a female because one of the babies is outside." Outside again when I tried to leave, did the same thing, and then it slithered away across the driveway. So thank you, guardian angel, for saying, "No, stop." And that saved my life. So we're listening and paying attention, aren't we, everybody? We're not just listening to the radio blasting in our ears or with those things in your ears. You must listen to the universe. Why did all cultures have stages in their lives where they went out into the forest or out into the desert? We're going to talk about the different cultures that meditate and how they pursue that, and how they pursue their maturing and moving on to the next level of their lives. The universe talks to us all the time. We're the dummies who don't listen and don't pay attention, or think, "Oh, that's just a coincidence." There's no such thing as a coincidence. It's an arrangement to get your attention. Think about that. Your guardian angel doesn't want you bumped off before ahead of time. You're not completing your mission. That's part of your guardian angel's responsibilities, to keep you out of trouble, to keep you from hurting yourself. How productive would it have been if I'd wound up in the hospital for 3 days, hoping they had crowfab, which is, a combination of snake venom, antivenom. So prayer is when you talk to God. Meditation is when God talks to you. All cultures around the world. I'm not talking about religions, although Buddhist monks and nuns, Hindu monks and nuns, Catholic monks and nuns all have special retreat time. And there are certain sects in the Catholic religion where they don't speak. They're totally cloistered, they don't speak, and if there's an emergency like, hey, there's a fire, they're going to speak. But they have times in the year where they're allowed to speak and allowed to have guidance from who is ever head of their convent or of their monastery. So the idea for the ancient cultures is to go into nature. Why? Well, because they don't have to listen to babies crying and people yelling, send the fish over here, or whatever they're doing. They don't have to listen to the chopping of wood. They don't have to listen to anything except the rustling of leaves, the sound of their own footfall on the grasses or wherever, or the pebbles or the sand. They have to listen to the wind, listen to the sounds of the birds. Get back to the real world, which I promise you is not skyscrapers. It's not condos on the beach. It's the sound of waves in the ocean, or the rippling of streams, or the sounds of a lake. And if you're lucky enough to, say, live in Michigan and you have the loons gliding over the water, I love the sound of the loons. This is when you can listen to what the universe has to say. The Aborigines call it a walkabout. They make a little backpack, take a little water, maybe not, because they know where the watering holes are in their area. And they have a stick. Well, number one, it's really useful if you're tired. Number two, you don't want to lay down on a bunch of bush unless you poke around in it and make sure there are no snakes. Number three, if a snake crosses your path, you're going to make sure that you avoid it. If it's getting too close, you can just push it out of the way with the long stick. Hopefully, it'll turn around and run the other way. Otherwise, it'll be your last walkabout. But you die in a pursuit of your God self. Only the Christians, the Jews, and the Islamics are afraid of death. Why? Because they've been told for thousands of years that you may go to hell, you may go to purgatory. The Catholics are now kind of saying, well, probably there isn't a purgatory. But there are different levels of existence in the astral world. Hitler is in a different place from where you and I will be. So therefore, fear of death is kind of a new invention brought to us by Christianity, Judaism, Islam. Not a favor. Death means you finished your lessons this time. Meditation helps you understand what your mission is and how you're doing. Many cultures, you go once a year. You take care of all your responsibilities, you gather up the wheat, you take care of the kids, you take care of the wife, you take care of the husband, and off you go. And they would go to certain spots in Australia, in their region, where they knew there was going to be food, whether it was seeds or nuts, whether it was going to be water, whether there were going to be herbs in case they get a scratch and they need an antibiotic. Yes, people, this is where medicine comes from, the plant world. Some of it even comes from the snake world. Botox scares the life out of me. The most poisonous item on the planet, and people are injecting it into their foreheads. Trust me, I ain't getting any. And if I ever get a facelift, I'll film it and we'll watch it together. I think there are certain things that should be done if you're interested, and certain things that should not be done. Injecting toxins into your system, that's not one of them, but I deviate. Okay, so they would go on their scheduled walkabout, and they'd spend time under a tree, they'd spend time in the sun, they'd spend time in the water. Remember, there are crocodiles all over that place. And they theoretically and usually came back alive, refreshed, enlightened, having new insight. They have certain chants. And you know the rock art that's in Australia, like rock art from the Native Americans out in the Southwest, rock art in the Sur caves in France, where they paint with dots in Australia to create an image. Perhaps it's a thank you to the universe. Perhaps it's a prayer. Perhaps they saw a totem animal, which the Native Americans call totem animals. Those are animals that they meet along the way that help them in some way, even if it's an adversity situation. They teach them something. They learn something. So when they come back, they're more enlightened. They'll be better members of the community, better husbands, better wives. And when you get to a certain age, you have to go on your first walkabout. Now, they don't tell the kids, but there's an uncle peering around, following you carefully to make sure you don't get eaten by dingoes or crocodiles. And if there's nothing they can do about it, they come back and they report to the tribe. Native Americans would go on their venture, whether it's the Southwest, whether it's the Iroquois Nation up in the Northeast. Regardless of who it is, they also go out into nature. They also find spots to sit quietly and meditate and talk to their spirit guides, talk to God. And remember, these people, it's only Christianity, Judaism, and Islam that have us here, the priests and priestesses there, and God up here is an old guy. The rest of the world has no concept of that. In the Western culture, the caduceus, or the meditation, which I'll show you in a second. I should have had you shoot this before, but we'll show, it's big enough for me to show. The idea of the winged serpent with the double spirals, meaning the female aspect of God, the male aspect, one God. One God, male, female, one God. Male and female aspect of God flowing down the spine and flowing back up again. In Hawaiian culture, it's vines. They don't have snakes. So the idea of a snake never occurred to them. So their concept of the spiral of life, and by the way, that's how DNA works, the spiral is vines, and that the vines are part of heaven and part of us. No other place except the three Western religions has a concept of God over there and us here. We're part of the same molecules I'm part of your molecules, you're part of mine, part of the plants, part of the cats, part of the whales, part of the ocean, part of the solar system, part of the stars, part of the ether. There is no separation. So this fear that gets created, hi Gracie, and the unfortunate distortions that happened when the Christians landed in North America and South America. Get your fanny out of the way. Oh, not the orchid. Not the orchid. Not the orchid. Not the orchid. Did I say not the orchid? There, go to your big sister. Go to your big sister. I have to take TV time for this. Okay, leave her alone. She's fine now. She's away from the orchid. The concept of fear is generated by this idea that God's there and we may never see God because we've been bad people. The Native Americans, whether they're in the forests, whether they're in the desert Southwest, whether they were in Mexico, Central America, South America, all had their time. And they got their totem animals from their experiences, whether it was a jaguar that was watching them and then turned around and walked away, a jaguar that they fought and chased off, jaguar that maybe took a bite and ran, a crocodile, a snake. That animal is giving them a wisdom that they didn't have before. And that's God speaking to them. The way my guardian angel spoke to me at the dentist's office. And many times. So therefore, these cultures all understood you had to go to nature. And the Native Americans also understand, and so do the Aborigines, I swear. Thank God she's a cat and not a dog. That if you were to kill an animal to live, that you had to thank the animal spirit and be grateful for the gift of life. They didn't just say, give me a cut of meat. If they were going to take the animal's life, they were realizing this animal was surrendering itself to keep them well. We don't have that kind of respect today. I am a vegetarian, and many people I know who meditate for a long enough period of time become vegetarians because they become aware that we're all part of the same culture. The Pacific Island people would go off into their jungle area. They'd go off, if they were close to the ocean, they'd go off and spend time in the ocean or on the cliffs or at the shore, and they constantly heard the sound of the ocean. And all of you, including me, who was raised on southern Long Island, who are right near the ocean, can tell you that the ocean waves create the sound of Om. The rustling of the leaves create the sound of Om. Bamboo moving back and forth, weeping willows moving back and forth, Om. The sound of the wind whipping by creates Om. And that is the word. The word was God. Om Mani Padme Om means Father, Mother, God. Om just means God. Okay, God, Father, Mother, God. Doesn't matter what you say. And they would also spend a lot of time in the water and respect the shark god. Not every shark that comes towards you bites you. You don't even know 99% of the time there's a shark near you. By the way, I don't know if you saw it on the news recently, but this guy in California was on his surfboard, and all of a sudden the surfboard was jostling, and he's thinking, oh, I'm done for. And on top of the surfboard jumps a baby seal. And the baby seal was looking up and riding in on the surfboard to the shore. And the seal was sitting like this with his little nose to the wind. The guy was stunned. Then you see the guy turning it around. The seal is still on the surfboard. And they're surfing together. How precious is that? So the Celts, by the way, did the same thing. So did the Southern Europeans. They all went off into the mountains, into the forests, into the fields, away from everybody. The Tibetans, of course, would find a cave. The Chinese would do the same. African tribes also did the same thing, going into the jungle if they lived in the in the Serengeti area where it was open savanna. They did the same thing there. Also, everyone made sure they had a safe place to live, but there's no such thing as safe because there are also big birds and there are snakes that climb trees. You take your risks. But you weren't considered a failure if you died on your vision quest, because it was all you needed to know from that vision quest. Now you have finished your work, pop, you're in the astral world, planning your next comeback. And the Africans also used these opportunities to do circumcision for boys, and sadly and tragically, and still today, genital mutilation for girls. It's a tribal thing. Many of them have stopped doing it. But that means that girls were butchered. And that has got to stop. That only came about approximately, they say, 1,000 years ago, when Judaism began spreading and Christianity began spreading to the African nations. So thank you for that. I'm going to show you a picture, this is good artwork from a magazine long ago. I don't know which magazine it is because it's not listed on the back of this picture. But here we go. Starting down, where's my pen? Starting down at the bottom here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you see, this is the pituitary gland, this is the pineal gland. You see different colors, different symbols, and different geometric patterns. And here is the third eye in this six-pointed star. It's a larger six-pointed star with a triangle in the center. It's a female triangle. And then there's a six-pointed star over that, and there's the third eye. Here's your third eye in your body, your pituitary gland, which goes back. It's right here. And the hypothalamus, or the pineal gland, is back a little further. And notice that we have the lotus pattern, the 1,000-petaled lotus blossom. And here we have a double set of wings. But all from the area are outstretched little radiant beams of light. Because as you're meditating, you're waking up your chakras. And I'll explain chakras in a second. But when you get to the pituitary gland, the chakras really begin to take wing, to take flight up into the universe. And having done so, when you reach your 7th chakra here, you're glowing in a radiant golden white light. The petals become larger, the six-pointed stars. The regular pyramid shape is the masculine. The inverted shape, think bikini, is the feminine. And we have 2, 4, 6. This is the symbol that the Jewish people use, the six-pointed star this way. Otherwise, it is really this way. These are your 7 main body chakras. 7 main body chakras. We have 2 other chakras just below our feet and 3 other chakras above our head for a complete total in body and spirit of 144, which those of you who've taken numerology classes from me know is the number 9. What is 9? Well, in the tarot, it's the Hermit. If you work it down in 3s, it's the six-pointed star, the male and female energy of God. The body, mind, and spirit of the male, the body, mind, and spirit of the female. Work it down to 3, it's the true Trinity, which is the Father, the Mother, and the Child, or the creation. Work it down to 1, it's the one energy of the universe. So this is what you'll be aspiring to. Sometimes you feel a tingling, sometimes you feel a tickling, sometimes you feel a thumping, especially from the heart chakra. Sometimes you'll hear sounds, sometimes you'll have fragrances, sometimes, and most times you'll have nothing. But you and your friends will notice that you are going through subtle changes, that you are improving. Your diet's improving. If you smoke, you're slowing down on the smoking and you're giving it up. If you drink, it's not so interesting to you anymore. Do drugs, same thing. You will change with meditation. You are supposed to change with meditation, because even though we're connected to the God force, because of modern religions, we think we're not. So instead of being connected properly, tight, which we really are, our souls are, our bodies think we're not. This reminds us that we are. All you need to do is sit up nice and straight, feet flat on the floor, palms on your lap. Focus with your eyes closed right here, not way above here, right here. And recite Om, or Amen, or Om Mani Padme Om. Disconnect the kids and the TVs and the telephones, the dog, the cat. It will not be unusual if your dog or cat starts moseying around your feet and your legs or jumping up in your lap, because animals love energy. Don't chase them away. Just have them sit. And eventually they'll sit quietly. I have never had a cat in my entire life that didn't come and join me when I was meditating. So therefore, they'll get calm. And if you have birds, you'll find out that they get calm too. It's a different energy that they're not used to, so they get a little frightened at first. But they see the astral world. They know what's going on. They're not big sillies. They understand everything. And you will be reconnecting yourself to the divine. And that's why we're here. Now, let's go to the kitty corner. Let's talk about joint disorders in cats and dogs. Overweight cats and dogs, number one problem for them is joint discomfort. Aside from the fact that they're carrying too much weight on their little bodies, they have the same problems that we do. We're not supposed to be overweight either. Our joints are ankles. Can you believe anything so stupidly designed as an ankle? How thin it is, how small it is, and it's carrying the whole body? Dumb. Feet, too small. Poor design. I have other complaints as well, but we'll avoid those for the moment. Joint disorders, if your cat is not walking right, or your dog is not walking right, or they're not sitting right, or they're not sleeping right, or they keep changing position, they have a problem. Bring them to your vet. Don't try to diagnose it yourself. Treat your cats and dogs as you would treat yourself. And remember, if you will just open up your hearts and minds to God's universal truth, you'll know that God and the angels are always with us. Namaste.